The answer past profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of aeons. I now see it, hear it, receive and uphold it, vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings, thus generate the supreme bodhicitta. Today we'll continue to study the wish-fulfilling treasury. Currently, we're discussing on how to rely on a spiritual teacher. Previously, we've discussed what makes a teacher qualified, what are the characteristics, and then how to rely on a qualified teacher. Now we're discussing the 3 ways to delight the teacher. Previously, we've already studied how to make offering with your own provisions or your own wealth to the teacher so that the teachers will be delighted. Today, we will talk about how to make offering with your own service and your own actions. Later, we will discuss how to make offering with your own practice. These are the 3 aspects. In terms of how to make offering with your own action, your own behavior, and your own service to the teacher, how to delight the teacher in such a way, there's the brief explanation and then the extensive explanation. Also, it includes the 3 aspects, that is, the body, speech, and mind. We will cover the body and speech aspects. In terms of the mind aspects, we will talk about it tomorrow. We will use 2 classes to discuss this. Though that the verses for the mind aspect has only 8 or 9 verses, which is rather quite short, and we should be able to finish it in 1 class, but I really want to give you more of an extensive explanation because we will never know when and if we will have an opportunity to study it again. So I would like to give you the teaching on this with a combination of the commentary from Lung Chenpa, so that you will be able to understand, as this is quite crucial in the study of yours in your progress. Now let's look at the first aspect, which is the body aspect, and then it has 2 aspects. The first one is what should be practiced and what should be abandoned. The first one says that a body should serve in the following ways: prostration, circumambulation, protection from obstacles, and serve upon request, standing up and lay cushions. It seems very simple. Let's now take a look at it. First of all, you should often use in terms of the physical body, you should see the teacher. You should prostrate to the teacher and circumambulate, as well as make offering and protect the teacher if there's any obstacles from the 4 great elements or from the wild beasts or the thieves and robbers. Whatever obstacles there may be, you should protect the teacher as much as possible. And then when it comes to serve the teacher with your actions, whatever the teacher asks you to do, upon request, you should serve the teacher. Whenever the teacher is on the road trip or going anywhere, then you should do so. Also, whenever the teacher comes, you should stand up rather than keep sitting. You should stand up, and whenever the teacher is about to give teachings or so on, or about to sit down, you should offer cushions to the teacher. If you're not around the teacher to make offering or prostration or circumambulation, you can also practice such with visualization offering as well. Previously, we've talked about making offering with wealth, which is the inferior offering. Today, we're talking about the middle capacity to offering, which is serving the teacher with your body, speech, and mind. And then later, we'll talk about the superior offering, which is with your own practice. Some teachers may think that, oh, maybe I would like a student who make offering to me with their wealth. That's probably the best. And some teachers may feel that it doesn't matter if the student practices or not. What is most important is to make offering to me. But that is rather very inferior way of making offering. Why is it inferior? It is because making offering with your materials, with your provisions and wealth, would delight that of the conventional beings. Also, comparatively speaking, it is easier to make offering with material things. What is more difficult than the material offering is to make offering with your body and speech, because when it is time for you to serve with your body and speech, you would have to endure lots of exertion. You would have to endure lots of exertion. You would probably feel rather quite tired. It could be tiresome. Since each of us would cherish our own life and our own time and our own body, it would be more difficult for us to let go of all of that we would grasp onto. Therefore, this is a little bit more difficult. Now, what is the most difficult but the most important offering? That offering is the offering of practice, because practice is the most crucial to a practitioner, and the final goal of relying on the teacher is to engage in practice. That is why the great masters of the past would emphasize on leading the practitioners, leading the disciples to practice, and that is the most crucial activity of the previous masters. If there are some transformations that's happening in the disciples' mind stream, that is considered as the most rare and the most precious.
我们这个前面也提到过，就是宁丧事欢喜的这个生寓意的话呢，
Previously, we've also talked about in order to delight the teacher, there are the two aspects that's related to the body, speech, and mind. The first aspect is what to practice to delight the teacher, what we should adapt, what kind of activities. The reason of doing so is to revere the teacher with our deepest respect, so that we will be able to attain liberation. This is the most important. In a more specific way, what we can do with our body is to prostrate to the teacher wherever the teacher is, or to the teacher's residence. We can practice circumambulation, or decorate it with flowers or other kinds of material, and make offering with materials. And then all of those kinds of external things, this kind of offering is called the outer offering. The inner offering is the offerings of ritual specialties to the Vajrayana masters. Then the last one is by making offerings of your inner realization and your wisdom, also the practice that's conducted through your own samadhi, which would be the most delightful to the teacher, and this is called the sacred offering. These kinds of offerings of inner, outer, and the sacred offerings are really supreme. It is not to just make offerings to the teacher when the teacher is there. In fact, even if the teacher is not there, you can still make the offerings to the teacher. For example, on the Parinirvana day, or making great offerings of on that special day, or to practice generosity, to repay the kindness of the great master, and try our very best to carry out different activities and dedicate it to the teacher. Also, whenever it comes to some special situations, in order to protect the teacher from the imbalance of the four elements or the beasts, as well as the enemies and obstacles. That's one thing that you can do to protect the teacher, or to practice whatever the teacher would ask for and would request you to do. Also, whenever teacher would ask you to go to certain places, you would listen to the teacher, and whenever the teacher would give teachings on the Dharma, then you can serve the Dharma throne or a cushion. The great masters of the past sometimes would mend the road or pave the road, as well as make all kinds of offerings and mandala and horses and chariots, and then waiting for the teacher. Whenever the teacher comes, they would stand up. This is a tradition. When I first started studying the words of my perfect teacher, I was still in normal school, and at that time, I thought it was rather quite strange whenever we waited for the Dharma teachers. All of us would have to stand up. I didn't quite understand, but then later, after I studied words of my perfect teacher and other texts, I realized that the way of treating teachers, treating the lamas, are different than treating the teachers from other secular schools. So whenever the lama enters, the guru enters, you should stand up and fold your hands and pay respect. There is a sutra that is available in Chinese language, and it is included in the Chinese Buddhism. It is called the Virtuous Reverence Sutra, or sometimes it's translated as the Correct Reverence Sutra, where it talks about the acharya, the guru, and the disciples should follow certain ways, and the disciples should respect the teacher in certain ways, which is similar to what's stated in the 50 verses on serving the teacher. It states that whatever the teacher is engaged in, the disciple should wholeheartedly contribute helpful hands. If the teacher were to be a lay practitioner, then one should also be respectful to the people around the teacher, especially to a lay teacher. Then you should also respect the family and friends of the teacher. According to the Tantra, it says that the loved ones of the teacher are also like the teacher. So some of the supervisors that we have, the Lama Sodun over here, often would jokingly ask the other practitioners by quoting this particular tantra, saying that you should treat me with great reverence. But we should know that we need to treat the family and friends of the Lama with respect as well. It is because, well, in some sense, there are people around the teacher. If they dislike you, they may create disharmony between the teacher and the disciple. But that depends as well, because there are teachers who are rather very independent in their own thinking and are not very easily to be persuaded by the others. And there are the ones who are very easily to get persuaded by people around them as well. Usually we would say that around the auspicious ones, there are the inauspicious ones around them as well. So similarly, around the really wonderful teachers, there are the not so great attendants or not so great maybe consorts of the teachers as well, which could lead to lots of difficulties. Though I didn't write it in the biography of the journey that I took with Ponsokor Rinpoche, but I indeed witnessed certain situations where the teacher was really great, but they've been influenced with the negativities of their family members. All of such situations could lead to a sense of renunciation from the teacher's mind, especially if those teachers have the freedom of choosing to abide in this world or not. So when it comes to the close disciples surrounding the teacher, a group of them are very good. If they are good disciples, they would definitely be able to put impetus in the various kinds of activities of the teacher. But if not, then they would rather be limiting the activities of the teacher, especially in terms of the 4 activities. These kinds of situations had happened, and it is not a rare case. It would be wonderful to have opportunities to be close to the teacher, to become close disciples. That's really wonderful, to be attendants. But on the other, that is a very difficult and rather dangerous career to have, to be an attendant of the teacher. Before we visited the United States, when I was with Ponsokor Rinpoche, I contemplated upon my actions and the possible outcome of serving Ponsokor Rinpoche closely, because it could be rather quite dangerous, and if I don't deal with situations properly, it could very much lead to negative karmas. Last year I thought about writing the biography of traveling with Ponsokor Rinpoche to the West, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as good as the first book. What the teachers surround themselves with are quite important, the close disciples or even the attendants. Of course, that is very much depending on the temperaments of the teacher as well. If the teacher is very independent-minded and have a very firm ground, then they're not going to be wavered by all kinds of voices that comes through. However, there are the kinds of teachers that's very easily to be wavered by other people's opinion. Then you have to be careful with that. Therefore, the Khenpos and Khenmos, I would suggest you not to have just one attendant. Rather, if you were to have this one attendant at the beginning, maybe they acted very well, they would pay great respect and so on, but then later you don't really know how things will turn out. Later on, they may abuse the power and abuse their positions. And around that time, you would find everything to be very limiting to yourself. I believe I translated the biography of Gema Wangpo Denzong No, where he only got one attendant after he reached 60 or so years of age because he needed some extra help. So I think it's quite important for us not to get an attendant at a very young age. Otherwise, it would make yourself rather quite lazy and inactive, and that could lead to the gain of weight, and it's going to get less and less convenient for you. Of course, if you just need simple help of fetching some water or so, that's fine. But it would be better for us to move a little bit. I am simply giving some suggestions here. I am not jealous of you. It doesn't matter how many attendants you have, and you can have as many as you wish. I'm not jealous of it, but I think it would be better for us to simply be who we are and lead a simple lifestyle for the Dharma teachers as well as some of our fellow members who have lots of merits. So contemplate about that. Over here it talks about we need to be grateful to our teachers. On one hand, we should serve the teachers. As disciples, this is something crucial for us to practice because of such great kindness that the teacher had shown us. So if we have the opportunities to serve, that would be wonderful. Now, the second aspect is that a king, in a worldly sense, would have retinues, and to those retinues, we need to respect them. For the same reason, we need to respect the retinues and the followers of the teacher as well. Do not disturb their mind. That would be very important. We have to be very careful. Also, we need to be cautious of big decisions, and we need to ask for the teacher's permission for we need to ask for the teacher's permissions for some of the big decisions that we need to make. According to the precepts teachings, it says that other than your bathroom business, you should talk about, you should ask the teacher's permissions for everything else. But this is to some young shramanas and some novices. Some of the Khenpos and Khenmos, they probably no need to ask for permissions for everything anymore. But it seems that nowadays the disciples don't really ask for permissions. They would make big decisions without asking. They would leave a sangha without even asking or explanation. Sometimes they would find an excuse, but really it is because they had made their mind already. But this is really not a very good way of dealing with the teachers, especially when the teacher is still alive. Then at that time, if you were to receive or give empowerments or teachings, all of those kinds of things, you should ask for permissions from the teacher. On one hand, it could help you to avoid obstacles, and on the other, those are the things that we need to do. It is said that at the time of relying on the teacher, your head should face the direction of the teacher. But of course, different places would have different situations. At first, when we just came to Larungar, Phuntsok Rinpoche's house was over there in that direction, and all of our sleeping positions would be heading to that way. And then after a little while, some Khenpos would ask Phuntsok Rinpoche for permission, that because they couldn't fall asleep in such a way, and the house is not arranged in such a way, so they asked the permission from Phuntsok Rinpoche so that they don't have to sleep that way anymore. But of course, it is when you have such convenience to do so, you could. But usually making offering with your own provisions, your own meals, and make offering of all the new and fresh as well as the best things to the teachers would be very meaningful. In the other commentary, there are lots of quotations. I really hope that you can read into it. It says that from our physical behaviors, we should try our best to revere the teacher so that teacher will be delighted. Since we have the autonomy over our own body, we can demonstrate our respect through our body. Though that the mind, the aspiration, and the heart is really important, it is quite crucial for us to serve the teacher wholeheartedly when we have such opportunities, so that whenever we remember those experiences, we won't feel regret. In many areas, I think that when I had the opportunities to serve the teacher, I tried my very best. I had never considered my own tiresome body, or I had never thought that I really shouldn't be doing this, or I haven't really thought in such a way, because a qualified teacher, since that teacher may have thousands of disciples, and it really doesn't matter to that teacher whether a disciple is respectful to him or her or not. However, not being respectful to that teacher would bring about harm to your own practice. The teacher, since the teacher is such an important and a very serious object for your own behaviors, therefore, whenever you would pay respect and revere the teacher, that would bring about benefit to yourself, and vice versa. In terms of teachers, there are two possibilities. possibilities. The first one is that if the teacher is a mundane being, then it doesn't really matter if you're respectful or not. If the teacher is a noble one, is an enlightened and realized one, then if you don't respect that teacher, the teacher would practice patience and the teacher would be fine. But in terms of yourself, when it comes to your own practice, that would have that kind of disrespectful actions and behaviors would plant an inauspicious seed for yourself and maybe destroy the dependent arising for your own practice, which would lead to the further destructions to your spiritual development. Whatever kinds of diligence you would implant later would not bring about great benefit to yourself. That is why we need to practice reverence and respect to the teacher in terms of the physical body. And now let's look at the things that we need to abandon in terms of our body. Here it says disrespect, distraction, stare, anger, clapping, facing the teacher backwards, extending the limbs, leaning, quarreling, teasing, inappropriate dressing up, and behaviors. Those are the actions that should be eradicated. So in front of the teacher, those disrespectful actions, including those distractions and disruptive behaviors, should be abandoned. Let it be teasing and joking frivolously, or at the time of listening to the Dharma, keep staring at the teacher. And over here in the auto commentary, it also states that just as someone who had, just as staring at the debtor, as if the teacher is in debt, this type of staring could sometimes demonstrate mental issues of the students. There are students like such. Also, there are the kinds of staring out of anger, out of aggression, even at the time of encountering the teacher on the way, passing through the teacher halfway through, and then the disciple would stare and would roll their eyes, and maybe it could lead to quarrel and conflicts.
就是还有呢，就是竖拍症啊，
Also,
就什么贪执也好，或者说是就是就凡是
use
在
the
上司
hand
面前
to
还
either
有一些
snap the finger
侧啊，就是侧身
or
就是背向那个上司
facing the
坐的时候
teacher
也是这样的，或者说是在上司面前
even
就是
during the
伸手
time
啊
of
伸脚啊
sitting,
就是
or
就
extending
或
the
者是侧
limbs,
着
the
走，或
hands
者是
and
卧着走，
feet to
或
the
者说
teacher,
是这个跟其他人就是互
or
相争夺啊，
sitting
互相
sideways,
这个嬉笑啊，就是各种
or
这
having
个
quarreling
冷嘲热
and
讽，或者说是
teasing
就各种
and
这个行为不
joking
庄
as
严的，
well
包括就是
as
自己什么这个种种的打扮呐，就是在上司面前的话，
all
一般
kinds of
是很多都
inappropriate
是这个礼仪
actions
是
in
要
front
这
of
个
the
亲
teacher,
近的，就是不应该这样
which
的，就是
includes
所以说
inappropriate
就是
dresses.
在这个上司面
In
前
front
应
of
该
the teacher,
大家们
one
心
should
系
maintain
休息
a very pure
当中呢，
outlook,
就是也
a
应该
very
就是
pure
讲了嘛，就是所以心系休息的这个著
presentation
述当
of
中也是讲的
oneself.
比较多的，就是
These
凡是我们这个身体呢，
have
就是所做的有些
been stated
不如
in
法
the
的
words
这
of
些
my
行为
perfect
的话
teacher
呢，
as
就是
well.
在上司面前
Also,
就是
in
应
the
该是
commentary of
尽量的
resting
就
the
是不
mind
做，就是
has
这个
stated
是
lots
有
of
这个
the
身体方面的
inappropriate
这个危险啊，
behaviors in terms
还
of
有
the
呢，就是
body
在这里
that should
还
be
有
abandoned in front of
有
the
个有个
teacher.
颂词呢，就是吐痰，
Now
就
the
是
next verse,
就是心
spitting,
体
snotting,
化
stepping
心
over
淫
the shadows of the
心
teacher,
是
going
为
forward
现
without
前心
permission,
行
walking
走
on
啊
the
就是
footprints
踩
of the
踏气
teacher,
效应
using the shoes,
适用
cushions, and chariots
血
of the
点
teacher,
晨起物
measuring the teacher's
侧
heights
损粮
and
食
stepping
胯左
over
点
the
当
seats.
短不紧不
These
止
are
不
the
胯就是还
disrespectful
有这个很
behaviors
多
that
事
should
情
be
就是上是这个
eradicated, and
居
there
住的
are
这个地方的话呢，就是
a
有
few
些
things
就
more
是
that
就
we
去
need
了
to
以
be
后的话
aware
呢，
of.
就是就很不恭
First
敬
of
的
all,
一些行为，
at
包括什么
the
吐痰
teacher's
呐，就是然
residence,
后就是
there
擤鼻
are
涕
the
啊、呕
behaviors
吐啊，或者
that
说
we
是有
should
一
definitely definitely avoid, such as spitting, snorting, and puking, throwing up. All of those impure actions should be eradicated. Some said that by sharing one washroom with the teacher should be avoided as well. But I think it really depends on the conditions. Whatever kind of situation you have in Tibet, it's probably a little bit difficult to avoid that. The next one says that if one were to step over the shadow of the teacher, then according to some of the tantras, it states that such kind of downfalls, such kinds of mistakes are quite intense, which would lead to the rebirth in hell realm. At the time of the teacher's walking without permissions, we shouldn't even walk faster and lead the teacher in front of the teacher. Nor should you walk on the right side or the back of the teacher, because in that way you might step on the footprints of the teacher. If you were to step at the front, then you're really leading the teacher. But I think it could be a bit difficult when there are lots of people walking beside the teacher, because everyone would like to walk on the left side of the teacher. And if the road is rather quite narrow, that would be difficult. And in the commentary, it says that if the teacher gives permission, then it's fine. If you were to ask the teacher saying that, oh, I'm just going to lead the way in front of you, is that okay? And then teacher give you permission, then that's fine. Or if you were to tell the teacher, can I follow you from behind? And then if you get permissions, that should be okay. I somehow remembered that in the wish-fulfilling treasury, it says that the cushions or the shoes, clothing, and chariots, as well as the beddings and the seats, without permission, you cannot use them. With the permission, I think you could. Is that stated in the Resting the Mind? I somehow remembered it was stated in the wish-fulfilling treasury. When I was writing the commentary on the heart essence, the heart advice, I cross-referenced with the wish-fulfilling treasury and the heart resting the mind, specifically on the chapter on how to rely on a teacher. Other than those stated, if you were to measure the teacher's body or the height of the teacher, or to put your hands over the teacher saying that, oh, let's go this way, or saying that you're taller than me or you're shorter than me, by using our body to measure that of the teachers is not allowed, because you're supposed to see the teacher as the Buddha, and to measure the Buddha's body with our body would create lots of negative consequences or has lots of faults. Other than those, stepping over the teacher's clothing and cushions, or sitting pretentiously in front of the teacher with the lotus position, or sitting with rather very frivolous and rude position, are not allowed. On top of that, if you were to think that the teacher is the same as you, by having such kinds of arrogance, that has lots of faults as well. So in general, you should really observe the teacher at the beginning before you rely on the teacher. After you already relied on the teacher, you're not supposed to start finding faults in the teacher again. According to the Tantra, after you relied on the teacher, it doesn't matter the teacher's behavior could be inferior or not appropriate, you should still respect. Otherwise, if you have already relied on the teacher, you have already observed the teacher and then made that decision and choice of relying on the teacher, then started pointing out, oh no, this teacher that I relied on is not good, and start being picky of the teacher's behavior, would definitely lead to the consequence consequence of being reborn in hell realm. Some said that by relying on the teacher should behave in such a way just like a newlywed wife or daughter-in-law rather, because I think in Tibet, when there's a new daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law would be very critical over her. So the daughter-in-law should be rather very careful with whatever behaviors. In Tibet, we say that the new daughter-in-law at the time of entering into a family, the wise mother-in-law would treat her kindly. Otherwise, the child of the daughter-in-law may in turn take revenge upon you. At the time of relying on a spiritual teacher, we should be without arrogance, and we should be very careful, just like a newlywed daughter-in-law, and be very cautious with our behaviors. In such a way, we will be able to receive all the qualities and blessings of the teacher. There was once Juntunpa asked Atisha, saying that there are many practitioners in Tibet, but why is it that there's not much of the realized ones? And Venerable Juntunpa said that in Tibet there are indeed many people practice the Mahayana, but you should know all the qualities and merits streams down from the Guru. If you were to view the Guru as a mundane being, how would you be able to receive the qualities and merits? If you were to view the teacher as more inferior than you, in such a way there is no way for you to attain realization. Maybe in India it is not like the Tibetans back then. They would rather view the gurus as the Buddha. They would view the gurus as the source of merits and qualities. So at that time, the Indian Panditas felt that the Tibetans would view the teacher as mundane beings. That is the reason of the Tibetans not receiving siddhis, not able to attain realization, and not able to receive the qualities and blessings from the teachers. But I think the Tibetans nowadays are rather doing quite well at the time of relying on the spiritual teachers, especially the kinds of teachers whom had bestowed the kindness and bestowed the Dharma teachings. The Tibetans would place great importance upon them. But in mainland, I'm not sure if there's such tradition of seeing the teacher as the Buddha. Maybe if you don't do that, Venerable Atisha won't be very happy about that. During the time of relying on the spiritual teacher, it is not that you forcefully manufacture this view, saying that the teacher is the Buddha, must be Buddha, but I can't see the Buddha, but he could be a Buddha, he wished to be a Buddha. If you were to manufacture such kind of mind, that would be difficult. However, if you were to be able to see it from the aspect of the kindness of giving you the Dharma teaching, the aspect of giving the teachings, and from the qualities, from all of those kinds of aspects, then slowly and slowly you will be able to develop this manufactured and unchanging faith that is without effort. I think if we can supplicate to the teacher often, then we will be able to see the teacher as the Buddha, because the kindness of giving us teachings indeed is very, very rare for all of us. It's very precious to all of us, and such kind of kindness is much greater than that of our parents, because in this degenerated age, who can bestow us such great kindness other than our teachers? Also, the teacher is not like any other sentient beings in this dark age. The teacher is not like our siblings and do not have any of those blood connections to us, except that out of their great connections, out of their great compassions, they had bestowed us such wonderful dharmas and bestowed us empowerments so that we can change our mind stream. And these kinds of transformations that we have nowadays are solely because of the power of the teacher and the blessings of the teacher. If the teacher is not a Buddha, rather, if the teacher is a mundane being, there is no way that our mind stream can be changed. I definitely believe that Pongsogo Rinpoche, he is indeed unsurpassable, and it's very easy to generate faith to him. But for others, I think there has to be a step-by-step process to generate true respect. But I think it really has something to do with the tradition and with the guidance from the previous generations as well. For example, in the Doma monastery, each of the great masters and the great teachers have such deep respect to each other. And because of that, we had been deeply influenced by their behavior of respecting each other. For example, whenever Khenpo Deba returns from elsewhere to Doma monastery, he would first pay a visit to Toku Diksha and Khenpo Lashik, because that would be very respectful. And then whenever Khenpo Deba returns, the second day, Toku Diksha would receive teachings or request teachings from Khenpo Deba. So there is a mutual respect to each other. And from my memory, I remember that whenever Khenpo Deba would travel to Burkham or other areas and received some offering of pecans or some chilies, because at that time, back around that time, we didn't really have lots of provisions. But I saw Khenpo Deba would hold large bags of those and send it to those tokus and other Khenpos when he visited them. I really feel that that kind of deep respect comes from the inner joy and the inner appreciation, and that kind of appreciation would influence the others, the disciples. So we should definitely be very respectful and be quite cautious of our own behaviors, just like a newlywed daughter-in-law. Let's now look at the speech aspect. In terms of speech, there are two aspects as well, what should be practiced and what should be abandoned. So the first one says, pleasant speech, praises and refuge, gentle words, honorific tone, following the teachings and kind replies, praise the teacher in front of the others, have great faith and make supplications. In our daily life, what we should do with our body in front of the teacher, we have already talked about what should and shouldn't be doing in front of the teacher. Now let's look at the language. The first one talks about what we should be practicing with our speech. Use our language to praise or to write poems about the teacher. Also take refuge in the teacher. There are people who would say that I only listened to the teaching, but I didn't take refuge from that teacher, but that is simply a very foolish statement. One should also have gentle speech towards the teacher, also speaking honorific terms. Whenever you're speaking to a teacher, you should use the gentle terms, because there are big differences in different connotations of words. Also, honorific tones. On top of that, if you were to find some misspoken words by the teacher, or sometimes simply a slip of tongue of the teacher, at that time, you should contemplate to yourself that it is simply I did not understand the profound meaning of the teacher, though it may seem to be conflicting to himself, but he definitely would not make that mistake. So you should contemplate in such a way to yourself, to think that there must be hidden meanings behind the teacher's words. However, when it comes to doing transcripts or audios and videos, at that time, when it is very clear that the teacher had simply had a slip of tongue. But if you were to say that, oh, I need to practice the pure perception, so I should just continue to write exactly what the teacher said, that sometimes wouldn't be very helpful. In the past, whenever we make some proofreading and editing of certain Dharma texts based on transcripts, when some very obvious mistakes were spotted, there were people who would say that no, Ponsok Rinpoche's Vajra speech cannot be changed. There has to be some sacred meaning and so on and so forth. But I think there are times that it is needed to change it. For example, even at the times of collecting and compiling the Vajra speech of Ponsok Rinpoche and writing records of the Terma discoveries of Ponsok Rinpoche, those revelations, sometimes those terms and sentence doesn't look too right. And so I would ask Ponsok Rinpoche, maybe this should be changed. Sometimes I could be wrong, and it could very much be my own opinion, but sometimes Ponsok Rinpoche would tell me, yes, that should be changed. So if you were to apply pure perception on everything, that wouldn't be too helpful. But the other extreme is that if you keep changing all the Dharma teachings within the text and adding your own dualistic thoughts into it, or twisting the meaning of the Dharma teaching, especially those of you who don't have such a deep foundation in Buddhism, or some of you without very good foundation of language, if you want to change based on your own dualistic thoughts, that's not very necessary or correct or helpful. Of course, with the right intention and with your own observation, if you were to make honest mistakes, there is not much of faults attached to it. I've previously stated that including transcripts and audios and videos, it would be the best to save those records, because our life could be very impermanent and things would change without any signs. If we don't leave anything behind, then it may not be helpful for the future generations. Of course, people in the future generation of future times may find the teachings useful or may not, but some may feel that the teachings are really good and I really want to watch more. So it would be necessary for us to preserve those Dharma teachings and records. Currently, I am working on the compilation and the editing of the entering the way of great vehicle of Ronson Pandita. I know many people are waiting for it, and many were pushing me to finish it, and I am trying my best, and it is still completing. And currently, it will be a little bit difficult to provide it to many of you, but in the future time, I will definitely provide these teachings to all of you. Do not worry about it. Sometimes I would be worried that after I leave, after I part from this world, these audios and videos are only in the hands of a few, then it may not be very good, because others may get jealous of it and would use other ways to get it, and I don't think that's very necessary. So in the future, we will make it available. But on the other hand, I find that people's tendency is to only read the books that they borrow from the others. But whenever you make those teachings too available, then people don't cherish them anymore. Anyhow, I very much appreciate those of you who are working on the transcripts and the texts, the audio and video. as well as the subtitles, because the subtitles takes lots of effort and lots of procedures to finish it. There's the editing of the words and the orders, and then you have to edit it and then put it on the screen and see if it works. There's definitely lots of process and procedures throughout. I know that some of you only work on 2 or 3 classes of subtitles, or only work on 2 or 3 classes a year. That is a little too slow. So I think you should study and at the same time diligently to serve the Sangha and to serve the others as well. This would probably be better. And then whenever you serve the teacher, you should try your very best. Also, if you cannot fulfill the request of the teacher, you should be very upfront and tell the teacher that it is beyond your capacity. It should be clearly stated to the teacher. Also, in front of the others, let it be familiar ones or just acquaintances, you should try to speak of the qualities, the meritorious qualities of the teacher. Do not speak of the faults of the teacher or speak of the complex situations surrounding the teacher. Do not complain about the teacher, saying that, oh, the teacher is getting rather not very sharp nowadays, and then start chanting the Vajrasattva mantra, and then said that, oh, the teacher is getting old, or there are lots of complex situations surrounding the teacher, so on and so forth. Rather, you should really use your respect for the teacher and talking about all the meritorious qualities of the teacher to the others. There was the great masters of the Kadampa who being praised by the disciples, and then lots of the other people got influenced by the disciples' praises and generated faith to the teacher and led on to the path. So I think the disciples of Phuntsog Rinpoche are doing quite well, because we only talk about the qualities, the wonderful qualities of Phuntsog Rinpoche. Recently, I met an authority who had read my book on the memoir of my trip with Phuntsog Rinpoche to a few countries, and he asked me, wow, this Phuntsog Rinpoche seems to be quite a great master. Is he really like so? And I said, oh, indeed, he's probably more great than what I wrote in there, and this particular authority is a non-believer. I think the majority of disciples of Phuntsog Rinpoche are doing quite well. We would quote Phuntsog Rinpoche's teachings whenever possible, and we would praise Phuntsog Rinpoche's qualities. And naturally, we received a great amount of blessings in our mind stream. When and if the teacher were to yarn in front of us or sneeze in front of us, all of those not so elegant behaviors, we should rather view them with pure perception. This is quite important. If we can have this pure perception by the power of the blessings of the Guru, then everything will be transformed into pure and virtuous. In the Parinirvana Sutra, it says that once the Buddha asked Ananda under a tree, saying that, could you bring me some water from a river? And Ananda said that, I just came back from that river. I can't remember it too clearly. Maybe 500 monks came from that direction and said that the water is rather very turbid and it is not a clean water. It's better not to drink it. But the Buddha kept on asking, saying that I need some water from that river. Would you please get me some? And Ananda had to go there and fetch the water. When he arrived at the bank, and out of his surprise, he saw that the water is so pure that he could see the bottom of that water. So we can see that the Buddha's blessings is indeed unfathomable, because since the water is so turbid, there is no way for the water to get cleared within even 10 days. But out of whatever power, Ananda was able to fetch clean water for the Buddha. Sometimes our dualistic thoughts are just like Ananda's. At the beginning, we felt that no, it wouldn't work. But if we were to practice exactly what the teacher asks us to, then maybe the world would manifest into a different way. This is quite crucial. So we'll continue tomorrow.